Welcome back, everybody, to ATO Rise podcast. We want to wish each and every one of you a happy new year. Welcome to 2023. We're excited about this year and all the things that's going to happen out here. We have a great guest with us today that is no stranger to iRaise. He is a phenomenal speaker, and I'm going to formally introduce him. But first, just want to say thank you so much for being here with me, for sharing a space with me, Brian.
Thank you for having me. I
Thank
appreciate you. Great to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So good to have you. So Brian Foster, I'm going to embellish his bio just a little bit and try to plug in the things that he missed in his bio. But he's been a praise and worship leader for, over 30 years.
It's been a long time.
Been over 30 years.
Yeah.
Also a recording artist. He does not talk about that, but you could probably find some of his songs on Apple, on iTunes.
Right. Apple Music, Spotify.
Uh-huh,
Things like that.
absolutely. He's an ordained teacher of the gospel since 2000. He's also an ordained minister and elder of the gospel since 2009. He's the leader and pastor of Deliverance and Worship Ministries, where he serves as an ambassador to online ministries, representing and preserving the Christian family and Christian principles. And so, he does a lot of work. Outside of that, he is the man that does it all. He is a sales specialist, a brand ambassador for Maserati. So if you're in the business of buying cars, you want to upgrade, you might want to talk to him as well, and just doing great work. So thank you so much, Brian, for being with us.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Well,
for having me.
Yeah, today we're talking about fatherhood, and we're talking about a very touchy topic. Co-parenting is a topic we don't talk about enough, but I think that this conversation, if you stay into the end, it's really going to help you and inspire you. For those of you that are in households that you are either a single parent or in divorced households, and you're really having trouble just connecting with the other parent and finding ways to really support your child, this is the conversation that's really going to help you. So stay into the end. Brian, you are in Atlanta. You're in Metro Atlanta,
I am.
but you're originally from
Bronx, New York, born and raised.
Boogie Down Bronx. All right.
Let's go. That's right.
So you're originally from the Bronx, but you're
Yes.
down here in Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to know if you can tell us your story of how you came out here. What are you doing out here in Metro Atlanta? What was that journey like for you?
Well, I can say, as you mentioned, born and raised Bronx, New York. I want to say there were just a series of events. Let me just call them traumatic events between the years, I want to say 2009 to 2011. Most of my mother's family had been in Georgia for some time. She had dreams of moving to Georgia. She would talk to my father about it while she was living. And oddly enough, my response to the latter portion of the trauma was to make an exodus from New York and to come to the place that she dreamed of being. It was kind of a way of capturing her essence in her absence. And so I arrived here really thinking of her while simultaneously just trying to leave some of the trauma behind.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. The fact that you're essentially coming back to your roots. So your mom she grew up here, or?
So she's, they say South Kakalaki, South Carolina, born
Right.
and raised. She migrated to New York while some of her sisters moved to Georgia and was
Right.
pulling on her, but she had roots in ministry that went very deep.
Right.
And so she wanted to make the move, but her commitment, her passion for Christ, for the gospel, for the ministry overpowered,
Right.
any desires for her it overpowered her live desire
Yeah.
to be here.
And so you almost fulfilled your mom's dream.
I
in
would
which
hope that she would feel that way,
Yeah.
because that's what I was trying to do.
I love that.
I was trying.
I love that.
Yeah, I was trying.
Yeah. So you're here out here in Georgia in Metro Atlanta. How long have you been living out here so far?
Wow. So I want to say, since 2011. Since
Wow.
2011, I've been here. Occasional visits to New York. Love
Right.
New York, love y'all, but I ain't moving back.
He left y'all in New York. He don't love y'all no more. But in Metro Atlanta, so you are now a pastor of an online ministry.
Right.
You have a great following online, and you talk a lot about real issues in your on your platform, and I think that's what people love most about
Mm.
your message. It's real. It's the message that people tend to shy away from.
Mm.
People don't want to talk about things. They like to sweep it under the rug, but you tell it like it is. You tell the truth, and I love that.
Amen. Thank
So
God.
on that, just in the realm of co-parenting, if you can tell us a little bit about what that's been like for you,
Mm.
being a man that is divorced,
Yeah.
that was in a home with your ex-wife and your son,
Right.
and now that transition
Right.
to being a father, a single father, essentially. What has it been like? What has that journey been like for you?
Well, to establish the right foundation, I have to speak first of the blessing of the family that I grew up in.
Mhm.
You know, our wealth was not monetary. We were
Right,
not poor,
right.
but what made us rich, it was a trio. It was mom, dad, and I. I
Hmm.
had no brothers and sisters, no siblings by blood to speak of.
Right.
But what made us rich was the love that we had,
Hmm.
was the honor that I was able to see my parents share. That's
Right.
what made us wealthy.
Right.
And of course, when you're growing up in that environment, you can't really see the forest, as they say, for the trees. You're in it.
Right. Yeah.
So you're benefiting from the warmth.
Hmm.
You don't know what the cold is like.
Right.
Being in the embrace of such a relationship, you don't know what it's like.
Hmm.
And then the assumption is, as I move forward in life, I know I'm gonna get married one day.
Hmm.
I know I'm gonna be in. I know, I'm gonna have kids one day.
Hmm.
And so you assume that you're going to experience more of the same
Wow.
as you move forward.
Right.
But those of us who will hear this know, as you know, we know, life will throw you some curveballs,
Hmm.
and then you have to recalibrate and you have to readjust. So I was in a
Right.
protected environment,
Right.
not a perfect environment, not
Right.
that nothing could touch me, but their goal was to synchronize as parents
Right.
and to make sacrifices. That's all
Hmm.
that I saw them do,
Right.
was make sacrifices
Hmm.
to forego things that they wanted so
Hmm.
that I can have
Right.
the best. So
Wow.
that transitions me into, you know, got married. Let's just say it did not work.
Hmm.
It emphatically didn't work.
Right.
But I remember, if I might say, I remember asking a question of the individual to whom I was married,
Hmm.
because I knew that we were transitioning to, it was no longer going to be, and the covenant
Right.
was no longer, because I knew it would, I remember asking, no matter what happens,
Hmm.
let us do all that we
Hmm.
can do to protect this child. I just, when you just kind
Right.
of have that inkling.
Hmm.
And so that's where the journey became difficult.
Right.
It wasn't difficult because I wanted it to be difficult.
Right.
Not even speaking from the standpoint of blame, but I will say there
Hmm.
are many who respond to the emotionally destabilizing effects
Hmm.
of divorce,
Right.
and can respond to those things in ways that put the child last.
Right.
I can say for myself, even in expressions of disdain
Hmm.
or anger or frustration,
Hmm.
and to express these things in earshot or in line of sight in the child, it is not to go too deep too soon,
Right.
but there is a irresponsibility that you don't know. It's like having something on your clothes. It's like walking around all day
Hmm.
with stains on your clothes and nobody told you.
Right.
Nobody was close enough to tell you you might want it, because you
Hmm.
got something on you
Hmm.
that's not only making you look crazy,
Right.
but you've got something on you that, in the context of what we're speaking of,
Hmm.
could be dangerous to the child. So to answer
Hmm.
your question,
Hmm.
it has been rocky.
Yeah.
Especially during right after the divorce and right
Hmm.
after you're not with, that was traumatic.
Yeah.
I mean, my son couldn't speak. He was talking baby talk, but
Hmm.
I was used to being around him.
Hmm.
And and then in my mind, I'm thinking, wait a minute. I mean, my father worked a lot,
Hmm.
but at least I knew he was coming home.
Right.
And this child, he's not going to be given that same, that pained me, that hurt me.
Mm.
It hurt me to know that I wasn't going to be accessible to him.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
I don't know if it really, I can tell you, it has definitely been challenging to create a balance that is healthiest
Child.
for the child. Yeah.
That's so real, and I don't think people really talk about the trauma behind divorce,
Yeah.
but also the loss that you experience, not just in terms of not being married, but also with your child,
Yep.
being in the same household and having that access to your child, but then having that taking from you essentially,
Right.
and being now in a place where things are regulated by court
Mm.
or by the other parent, which
Yeah,
then poses a lot more trauma.
it does.
I have been, I've
Mm.
been friends with many people that have gone through issues in a realm of co-parenting, and a particular individual is coming up for me, a colleague from the past who she was co-parenting with her child's father, but it went really ugly, it went really bad, really fast,
Yeah.
and through the court system, which was in New York City family court system, there were a lot of decisions that were made that harmed the child.
Mm.
And so, a lot of times I don't think we talk about that enough. We don't highlight how sometimes courts can be complicit in that trauma,
Oh yeah.
in many respects. And
Oh
I
yeah.
and I don't know, and that's a whole nother talk.
I mean,
We might need to get like family lawyers here
it's
and talk
real.
about that. But I think it's worth mentioning
Yeah.
that it gets very messy when we're talking about the divorce and we're bringing in court and now who gets the child when, and how that affects not just the child but also the parent.
You you have hit on some topics. While you were talking, interestingly enough, I thought of the words of my former pastor's wife. We knew her as Mother Bryant,
Mm-hmm.
and there's something that she would say often,
Yeah.
and she would say, "If you can take it,
Mm-hmm.
you can make it."
Mm-hmm.
If you are wired the way that I am, and
Mm-hmm.
many individuals are, many fathers are,
Right.
we may be expressive as individuals,
Mm-hmm.
but then we are expressive on a whole nother level
Right.
as it relates to the children that we love, because
Mm-hmm.
that taps into the full force of our passion,
Right.
the full brunt force.
Mm-hmm.
It is very difficult to be silent
Right.
in the instance that you feel that your heart is being misrepresented and you have
Right.
to watch it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Hence this term, if you can take it, you can make it. There is
Right.
a wisdom
Mm-hmm.
in being able to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wisdom in knowing that your actions will demonstrate your hearts
Mm-hmm.
before your words have the
Right.
opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trap that's set
Mm-hmm.
for many, I want to say many men, many fathers.
Right.
I don't want to say it's exclusively men, but I would say more proportionately men, because of
Right.
the dynamic, because of the
Yeah.
dynamic socially.
Mm-hmm.
The courts are not wired to favor the dad.
Right.
They're not designed to favor him.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. And so there are things that we can do that assist that aggression against our place and our
Right.
posture, the
Mm-hmm.
need for us
Right.
by speaking. You can speak the truth at the wrong time.
Mm.
You can be so
What's that look
desperate.
like to do
You
that?
can be so desperate to defend you till you forget to defend your seed.
Wow.
And so there was a all right, y'all finna laugh at me. But there was this program that I really liked
Mm-hmm.
that was called Game of Thrones.
Okay.
There was a gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he used the term that I'm gonna use right now. He said to a group of individuals that he was addressing, he said, "We're gonna go out there, we're going to battle." He said, "We are the shields that guard the realm of men.
Wow.
We are the shields that guard the realm of men."
Mm-hmm.
That hits different.
Wow.
When you realize, okay, it's not in the heat of the battle. When I know he lying. I know she lying. Y'all don't know. She lying.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't the truth. That ain't what I did. That ain't what I
Right.
said. That's
Mm-hmm.
not my heart. No, I have been there. No, I did
Mm-hmm.
show up. No, I
Mm-hmm.
did call.
Right.
These are the things that fathers want to say.
Yeah.
They want to say, but they know before they even say it.
Mm-hmm.
They know before they say it, they're not going to believe me. They're not going to
Right.
believe it. No, I did call. No, I did give. What do you mean I didn't pay? I did pay. I've been paying.
Mm.
All of this kind of
Wow.
stuff. But there is what's the word? There is a sinister, here, let's get it,
Mm-hmm.
retaliatory emotion that
Right.
begins to consume those who have been wounded. Once
Right.
again, it's not to vilify a mom or a dad,
Right.
but it's to say we forget to protect the seed,
Right.
because they're the ones that have to see this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that don't understand. Let's
Right.
take it a step further. They're the ones that don't care what your battle was, what your issue. The child don't care.
Right. Right.
They didn't ask to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But now that they have arrived,
Mm-hmm.
they don't need to see the conflict. All right,
Right.
hit the rewind button. It's
Mm-hmm.
how much we can take
Right.
as a father. For me, my
Mm-hmm.
experience
Mm-hmm.
transition from, I went through a transition of being very, very verbally retaliatory,
Mm-hmm.
combative. but I realized that wouldn't get me anything.
Right.
And I realized also that it was damaging to my son. It was more damaging to him
Right.
than I think I realized.
Right.
So I had to transition, not to talk too much, to transition from a posture of saying a whole lot to holding a whole lot.
Wow.
And believing that my goal is not to convince you that I'm a good man,
Right.
because you are in my rearview mirror. My goal is to be the best father to this child that I can be.
Right.
And so I want to demonstrate that with my words, and I want to demonstrate that with my silence when I want to speak,
Right.
when I want to defend myself.
Right.
Let my projected love onto him be my defense.
Wow. That's so strong. But I'm thinking about fathers that are even probably listening right now, and they're going through very similar things, but they may not have had such a, as I think that matters. Like when you have the upbringing to see what a father is supposed to be,
Right.
when you have that example and you have that as a role model, and you can call your father and say, "Hey, Dad, I'm going through this thing."
That's right.
There is a very different. It's a very different scenario
It is.
than a child, than a father who has not grown up with a father, because they have not learned how to be fathered. So when these challenges present, they may not be as solid and strong to stand in faces of adversity like you have. For those fathers that were not fathered properly, who fathers may have abandoned them or were not there when they were growing up, what would you say to those fathers?
Wow. That's so strong. What comes to mind is a scripture that says, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." Another thought that comes to mind is isolation is selfishness to some degree, because there are those who have not had the experience that I had and were not raised in what would be classified as the model home. But as men, one of the things that we struggle with this four-letter word, help. We struggle with help
Wow.
because we have been trained to believe that help is a confession of weakness,
Wow.
when it is not. That help is a word that gives us access to resources that otherwise would not be available to us. There's even a scripture that says, "Let brotherly love continue." In the continuance of that love, in the expression of that brotherly love, just help. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to tie this tie. I don't know how to show him how to tie the tie. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to put this together. That there's a camaraderie that needs to be nurtured.
Right.
And I believe, is it a replacement for? No. But it gives us as men and as fathers who haven't had access to what we desired to have but didn't have, in the brotherhood, in the camaraderie that can be formed, that can be born, we can access these things.
Yeah.
We can learn to come out of isolation, and we can learn as a collective that help does not mean weakness.
Yeah, I love
Doesn't
that.
mean
But you
weakness.
said something really powerful, and that's the collective and brotherhood. And I think that really is where, because as you were saying help, I thought about, well, who would they ask for help to? Who would they go to for help? They don't have a father figure, but you hit it right there on the nail. Brotherhood.
I'm telling
If there is a brotherhood out there that men can turn to, that single fathers can turn to get help, I think it would really transcend fatherhood. So I think right now what's going on in our world is we have a fatherhood crisis. And many young people are dealing with absent fathers for so many reasons. But it's been, such a pandemic, inside of a pandemic that's been
Wow.
happening.
So strong.
And especially for our black boys, it always breaks my heart when I see little black boys being murdered and taken out of this earth from senseless violence.
Yeah.
And most of those little black males don't have fathers. And so there's a fatherhood crisis.
Yes.
And so I know we're kind of branching out into another topic, but I would love for you to speak to
It
that.
has. Wow. So there's a double-edged blade at work. There are, let's just call it, societal informational missed signals that are sent. And the effect is, one, as a society, there's a depreciating understanding of the role and the necessity of the father. So
Yeah.
so the role of the father begins to be interacted with as, I mean, if you have one, you have one, but you don't need one, which is one of the biggest lies.
Absolutely. It's a
Let's
huge
stay there
lie.
for a minute. To destroy the family, you got to come through the dad.
Mm-hmm.
I speak of this from a Christ-centric perspective,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus said, I came to do the will of my Father that sent me. He's the one that gave me momentum. He's the
Right.
one that gave me purpose. He's the one that vouches for me and protects me. And if he
Mm-hmm.
tells me to go, I trust him.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes from that. It
Right.
has its foundation based on that. But that is what is under attack in modern day society all
Right.
over this world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas coming from the Christ centric perspective, the Father is necessary. In modern times, the Father is optional. He's around, he's around. Let's replace him with another topic. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where are we going? So then you have, as a society, not really placing the emphasis that once upon a time,
Mm-hmm.
there's a scripture that says we must earnestly contend for the faith
Mm-hmm.
which once existed amongst the saints. Why I mention that is we have to fight earnestly for the belief and the
Mm-hmm.
conviction that once existed
Mm-hmm.
amongst humanity. It was
Right.
understood
Mm-hmm.
that the Father was not an option,
Right.
that he was necessary,
Mm-hmm.
that he needed to be on post.
Right.
So when society begins to believe the lie, now
Mm-hmm.
here's the next thing. Then the man begins to believe the lie.
Right.
He as an individual begins to see himself as an option.
Mm-hmm.
He himself doesn't feel the weight of the responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
which kept a lot of men in times past in places where they were maybe scared to be.
Right.
Fear is a factor.
Right.
When responsibility comes upon you that you didn't expect, okay, run. But when you the weight of your love and the weight of your responsibility, when you understand
Right.
as a man that you are needed,
Right.
that you are necessary, that it is a return to a knowledge that has been swept under the rug and cast aside, that it needs to be echoed from the rooftops, from the influencers in the church, in the communities, to speak to these men. Because the reality is, folk don't want to talk about the fact that our minds as men are being bleached
Mm-hmm.
in by lies, by
Right.
misrepresentations of truth,
Yeah.
to cause us to look at ourselves in ways that we should not be seeing ourselves
Right.
as it relates to our family, as it relates to our seed. So again, there needs to be a resurgence, a renaissance, if you would, amongst communities to cause community to understand we need to nurture the idea,
Right.
the knowledge of the fact that fathers are necessary,
Yeah.
and then to nurture the men on an individual level, to build them up in their spirit and help them understand you are needed, you are necessary. What you don't know does not disqualify you.
Right.
What you don't know, you can learn.
I love that. I think that's so powerful. Just reminding, especially Black men, and the reason why I focus on Black men because I know Black men are just one of the most attacked people in this world.
Right.
For your skin color, for your being perceived violence, being perceived aggressive, and all the other stereotypes that you have to fight through every single day. So there's already a beating up that you go through, stressors that you encounter every day. So I think reminding Black men, especially Black fathers, that you are needed. And that you are valued is important. A lot of times, those are not messages that we hear enough. And I'm also thinking about our policies. So, on a macro level, a lot of times our policies don't include fathers. We tend to exclude them from the conversation.
Right.
You know, when you're thinking about school, they don't even call the father. You know, my sister told me a story. She's like, she's married now. And she's like, the father is listed on the emergency contact and authorized pickup, but they bypass the father and call her. And she's like, stop calling me and call their father. And they won't do it because the perception is the father is not necessary.
That's right.
And the father doesn't need to be engaged and the father doesn't need to be involved. But in reality, the father is so needed and so important to the role of that child. That father is the one that really validates that child and that really helps them to understand who they are,
Yeah.
to develop a positive sense of self and identity and self-esteem. And you know, there's a lot of research out there that supports this. There's a lot of statistics out there that supports the importance of a father. So I'm not sure how we became a society that's forgotten that when it's so obvious and it's right in our face.
Wow. I tell you, you are dropping some bombs, some jewels. That person that has no rule and this is scripture, over their spirit. They're like a city that's broken down and without walls. So when I think of that, I visualize the family. I visualize the effects. There are infections, viruses, and diseases that attack the immune system, that literally disable the ability of the body to defend itself. You say, why do I mention that? Because this world suffers an identity crisis because of the attack of the man. There is the guard is the guard, the protection, that which the man represents. When that is attacked, they are literally, the family is like a city, a small city that's broken down and does not have the wall of defense in place.
Wow.
When the cat is away, the big cat, the mice will play. You see, there is an invasion that comes into, you have things going on in families today. We both know things. I mean, it wouldn't even be named, but let's just break it down. Let's just break it down to something very simple. Those who have wicked intentions, as it pertains to the family, as it pertains to children, there are all kinds of things that go on. Children who are mishandled, children who
Molested
there
and
are
raped,
testimonies. There are so many stories that have been told of this happened to me and this happened to me and this was a friend and this was a. The question is, was daddy there?
Right.
I can't say for every instance, but I can say a lot of times, no, he wasn't.
Right.
And the reality is, a lot of times, if the father was in place, a lot of the things that happened would not have happened.
Oh, yeah.
So there are those who would very strongly disagree with this, but with equal and greater force, we have to respond and say, no. We are absolutely necessary.
Right.
And just to clear, not to, when you think of dominion, dominion is not given to the father figure to control or to enslave, but to nurture, to love, and to protect. The role is not to dominate and to suppress and to put folks under your thumb. That is not the role of the father.
Right.
And that is not what I experienced. You know, my father wasn't as wordy, but he demonstrated his love through his actions,
Right.
through his commitment to make sure that we had no matter what, even if it meant him lacking.
Right.
And so that was the demonstration that I saw, that I'm grateful for to this day. Grateful that God has given me the opportunity to live long enough to tell him thank you.
Yes.
That we didn't have as many conversations as I wish we had. But when he was working and I was home, he was talking to me. I just didn't know. He was speaking through his labor. He was speaking through his love. He was speaking through his grind.
Right.
And when he would come home and just be leaning on the wall, he was speaking to me then.
Right.
And he was saying, son, I hope you're watching. I hope you see that I know you wish I could have made it to the game. I know you wish I could have been here, but I want you to feel my heart and understand that this is not an expression of the fact that where I just came from, I wanted to be.
Right.
This is demonstrating to you what a father not only can be, but what a father must be.
Right.
If the world around you compels you to forget, commit yourself to remembering this labor of love.
Wow. That's so deep.
Yeah.
What is the role of a father, in your own words?
Wow. I believe it is multifaceted, it's layered. To, if I can say, and I will say, to be a representative of God's love to the family is the original design. To demonstrate, to pattern the love that God had for humanity, and to do that on a, I guess you can say, a micro level, a microcosmic example of what God does on a cosmic level.
Right.
The love that he has for man is the love that the Father is called to demonstrate to the family. So there's a scripture that says, so for God so loved the world that he gave the most precious thing to him, his only begotten son. He says, stop, hit the pause button. So now as a father, you must be willing to give what is the most precious for you, that your family might live, that they might have the best, that they might never, if they lack things, that they would not lack love.
Right.
Right? That they would live long enough to see that if there's a seed in the ground, the seed of your love, your effort, your labor, that they're able to transition into a place of subsistence, of health, of wealth, right? That's the role of a father, to love, to protect, to demonstrate, to be an example, to be an example.
Right.
Sometimes it's not even so much standing there and giving a lecture. I was listening to somebody recently say, they were talking about the preaching of the gospel. They says, okay, we'll preach the gospel at all times, use words when necessary. I said, what the world? because our actions speak.
Right.
And so it's to be an example and to demonstrate
Right.
what God's love is to the family. And I hope that answers the question.
It does. I love that. So we don't think about, when we think about the role of a father, when we don't really, although the father should absolutely love, I think a lot of times we miss that love part, which it really is
Yeah,
the main,
the
what that
core.
father is showing. Um, so if you can give like some concrete examples of men that might be out there right now that may be struggling a little bit in their role as a father, may not know how to show up for their kids, may not know what to do because they're just not educated on this. They haven't had that example. What would you tell them? What's some advice on some concrete or technical things they can do to really show up for their kids?
So what comes to mind for one is really my own story. There were moments I remember where I didn't have it. I didn't have it. I'm talking about monetary now. And so as a man, if you've been trained, if you received any training, you have any understanding as it relates to your family or as it relates to your child, you're going to want to have. And so there is a temptation, if I can use that word, when you don't have, for the sake of shame, just not to show your face. You can feel like because you don't have what you really would like to give in fullness, you feel as if your presence, just to even be there and have a conversation with them and to even show that concern, you feel as if it doesn't mean anything because you're making a connection between I don't have it in my account. And so you're saying, because I don't have it in my account right now, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't feel like it's beneficial to
Right.
be there,
To show up.
not to show up. And I want to say that is a lie.
That's absolutely a
You
lie.
you cannot, you cannot put a gradient on how much it means to a child, boy or girl, to just be there,
Yeah.
to just be present.
Yeah.
If you can't think of the words to say because you're so overrun within yourself by shame, I would say to my brothers, don't let it keep you on the outside.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it a step further. If you're being buffeted by those who are beating you up because you don't have, love your child enough to withstand that abuse.
Right.
Love your child. Gather the strength for them just to be present.
Right.
Just be there. Even if they're making you feel like the scum of the earth because you don't have what they wish you could provide.
Right.
9 times out of 10, those complaints are not coming from the children.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No. So you just say, I wanted to be here. I wanted to be there for you. I was thinking about you.
Right.
Those sorts of things. Quickly. Next thing I would say is, never stop seeking to better yourself. There is
Love
no
that.
man walking this earth that has not been born with a gift.
I love
You are
that.
gifted.
Love that.
And if you're gifted and you don't know it, I'm here to inform you that there's a gift in you, and I charge you to seek it and to discover it.
Wow.
And ask God to show you what He's given you that will bring you and your family into wealth. Your gift will make room for you. It will make room for you and your family. It will cause you to sit before kings and great men. What am I saying? Find your passion. And don't let anyone make you feel bad about your passion. There are men who are sitting in places of barrenness, not because they had to be, but because somebody told them that their passion was stupid.
Right.
Somebody told them that what
Someone
is
didn't believe
actually
in them.
their gift
Right.
wasn't a gift.
Right.
They begin to grade that man based on the skills that they had, and not recognizing that that man actually may have some things that they didn't have. And because that man was in a state of vulnerability, his emotional defenses were not in a place to where he could fight against that. So he began to believe lies about himself. Or maybe I'm not gifted, I don't have it, oh, I'm a nobody. And he began to have and embrace, what's the word I want to use, these self-devaluating thoughts. To answer your question and not to run on,
That's good.
seek for ways to build yourself. I don't care if it's a handyman class. I don't care if it's an online course. It is something that will make you feel better about you,
I love that.
make you feel better about your ability to provide. These are things. And then coming back, not to sound like a broken record, but help. Observe the examples that exist in your community, even if it's just one person, that you gather the courage, even in your most vulnerable place, make the phone call, just saying, can I talk to you for a moment?
Yeah.
Do not be afraid to release those tears, that ocean that's on the inside of you. There's a healing.
Wow.
There's a healing in being able to cry. Jesus himself wept.
Wow.
To be able to, it is a lie to say, well, I'm a man, I can't cry, or I can't say that hurt. No, these are the things our children need to see.
Oh, yeah.
They don't need to see us curled up in a ball, no.
Right.
But they do need to see that as men and as fathers that we are strong enough to acknowledge weakness.
Right.
To be strong enough to acknowledge our areas of vulnerability does not make us weak. It is that honesty that will actually empower our seed.
There's a father out there right now that's probably listening. They haven't talked to their children in maybe some years now. And they've probably been afraid to pick the phone up. What would you say to them?
I would say, my brother, it is not too late. That the breath that God has given you is a gift because God himself believes in you. He believes in the dream that he has of you. He hasn't given up on you. That the evidence of God's mercy and the tenacity wherewith God loves you, it's not too late for you to reach out. Think of this. Think of, okay, what sort of effect can this phone call have on my child? There is the possibility, they might be upset. Yeah, they might, acknowledge some frustration. But that frustration doesn't come from a place of hatred. It comes from a place of love. It
Wow.
comes from a place of, I have missed you. And that means your presence is not non-desirable. The reason I cry, the reason I reach for you is because I miss you. So I want to say your presence is desired. And I want to challenge you to make that call, to make that effort. And I believe it will pay. I believe it will pay dividends. I believe that there will be no regrets associated with reaching out. That's your child. Did you hear me? That's your seed.
That's right. Yeah.
That's yours.
I love that. I appreciate that advice. I'm not a father, obviously, but it's just refreshing to hear it on the other side. I think about our kids that I raise, and we serve a number of children in New York, thousands of kids out there, and one of the patterns I've noticed is most of the kids that are acting out are dealing with trauma, mental health issues. About 99.9% of them do not have a father. And I'm thinking of actively when I meeting with some of the students, in times past who's disclosed how much it's hurt them that their father has walked out or abandoned them. And what's interesting is in some of these cases, it was the mom. Yeah, mothers out there, you better stop it. I'm not playing. It was the mothers that were keeping the kids away from the father. And it really broke my heart. I said, then we can't do it, mothers. We cannot. Listen to me. I am a single mother myself. We cannot do it. We got to lay our emotions to the side. We have to deal with real trauma, and we have to make sure that we show up for our kids and do not stop them from having a relationship with their children because we're hurting them. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to answer to our kids when they get older, and they'll have some choice of words for us. So it is not the best decision to do. It's not the best decision to make. I've come across many moms, single mothers that did not know how to separate their emotions from parenting. And because of that, they made really bad decisions in keeping the child, thinking they were protecting the child. Now, the father obviously, has some severe issues like he's violent or, other things like on drugs or even that. Let the courts handle it. But don't make the decision to keep the child away from their father. The father role is so vital, even if you are not with him. Even if you guys are not together, don't do it. I'm telling you, I've seen it. And as mentioned, our kids are the ones that are really taking the bullet. They're the ones that are suffering when we make these kind of decisions. It's not our decisions to make, and we are not protecting our kids by doing it. I got to say that. I have to say that.
God bless you for saying that. I know the time winds down, but what comes to mind, if I may say, I remember my son abruptly, I want to say, taken to New York from Georgia and being away from him for the larger portion of 2 years. I would go to visit, but I just wasn't with him.
Right.
And he was very young, and that was hurtful to me. What I feared as a father was that he wouldn't know me, was that he wouldn't love me. I feared that I wouldn't have a relationship with him. I feared not having him. And
Right.
so for a father that might be dealing with something like that, I want to tell you, my son is 12, and that boy, he loves
Love
literally
his
the
daddy.
ground that I walk on. Not by my
Absolutely.
design,
Mm-hmm.
but that time that you spend trying to be there is not time wasted. I
It's
say
not in
all of that
vain.
to simply say, to make that point. Don't feel like the time that you invest in trying to be there and being there is a waste of time. It is not.
It's not in vain.
It's not.
I love that. Well, I have one request for you from you before we end tonight. Can you sing us a little song, a little something something, maybe
So,
like a 30 second, 60
30
second,
seconds. 30
close us
seconds.
out with a nice little song. I
Okay.
think the audience would appreciate that.
How about it? How about it? Let's see. Love, a word that comes and goes, but few people really know what it means to really love somebody. Oh, love, though the tears may fade away, I'm so glad your love will stay, 'cause I love you and you show me, Jesus, oh, what it really means. Oh, what it really means. What it really means to love.
Wow, thank you. That was something. When you gonna hit the studio and record that?
Oh, my
Drop
goodness.
that album, y'all. He needs to drop that album for real. He playing with
Oh,
it.
my goodness.
Thank you so
Bless your heart. Thank you for
much,
having me.
Brian. I appreciate
I appreciate you.
all your wisdom, all you poured out, your sacrifice, and what you've been doing for your son. It is a testament for fathers. I'm estimating maybe thousands of fathers out there that needed to hear that story. Thank you for sticking it in there. Thank you for the work that you're doing with your son and the difference that you're making and all the wisdom nuggets that you dropped tonight. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you for
I
having
appreciate
me.
you.
I appreciate
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.
Y'all, that's Brian Foster. How can people follow you and get in touch with you?
So on Facebook, just look for Brian J. Foster Deliverance and Worship, and also on Instagram, Deliverance and Worship Ministries. Deliverance and Worship. That's where you'll find me.
Reach out to him, y'all, if y'all need support. He is online pastor. So fathers, remember that word, 4-letter word. What was it? Help.
Help.
Reach out if you need help. Consider
Definitely.
that a part of your brotherhood. Thank you all so much for supporting tonight's podcast and for staying connected to us and just being part of uplifting these concerns and these really important issues. We hope that you got something out of this, and we're so happy that you stayed to the end. Stay tuned until next time. Thank you all.